The morning sun peeked through the blinds of Sunshine Diner as Maya wiped down the counter for the fifth time that hour. 6 years of waitressing had taught her that keeping busy was the best way to make time move faster. She glanced at the clock hanging above the kitchen entrance. 10:43 a.m. Just over 4 hours left in her shift. "Order up," Frank, the cook, called out, sliding 2 plates of pancakes onto the pass-through counter. Maya tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and balanced the plates on her forearm with practiced ease. The diner was half full, mostly regulars who came in every day for their morning coffee and breakfast. She delivered the pancakes to an elderly couple in booth 7 with a genuine smile. "Here you go, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. Blueberry pancakes with extra syrup on the side. Just how you like it." Mrs. Chen reached out and patted Maya's hand. "Thank you, dear. Are you playing tonight?" Maya's eyes brightened. "Yes, I've got my hour at Miller's Music after work. I'm working on a Chopin piece." "Such talent," Mr. Chen nodded approvingly. "One day we'll pay to hear you play." Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest as she moved on to refill coffee cups. Little moments like these kept her going through the long shifts of carrying plates, dealing with occasional rude customers, and the constant smell of frying oil that clung to her clothes and hair. The bell above the door jingled, and a group of college students piled in. Loud and full of energy, Maya sighed quietly. The morning rush was giving way to the lunch crowd, which meant non-stop movement for the next 2 hours. "Got a 6-top in your section, Dina," the hostess called out as she grabbed menus. Maya nodded, quickly clearing a recently vacated table. As she stacked dirty plates, her fingers instinctively tapped out the rhythm of the piece she'd been practicing. Bach's Prelude in C major. Her hands remembered what they were meant to do, even when they were carrying coffee pots instead of dancing across piano keys. At 26, Maya had spent more than half her life playing piano. Her grandmother, a piano teacher, had started her lessons when she was just 5 years old. Everyone had said she had a gift. By 12, she was performing in recitals and local competitions. Her parents had sacrificed to keep her lessons going, seeing how music lit her up from the inside. Then came her father's accident. The medical bills, the lost job, the impossible choices. Piano lessons became an unaffordable luxury, and her grandmother passed away the following year. Maya's fingers still found their way to tabletops, counters, her knees, anything to keep the rhythm alive within her. "Maya, table 12 needs their check," her manager called out, snapping her back to the present. She hustled through the lunch rush, pouring coffee, taking orders, delivering food. The diner was nothing fancy, just a local spot known for good pancakes and better coffee. But it paid the bills. Most of them, anyway. She shared an apartment with 2 roommates to make rent, drove a car that was more duct tape than metal, and saved every extra penny toward a dream that sometimes felt too distant to touch. "Hey, Earth to Maya." Tina, another waitress, waved a hand in front of her face. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" Maya asked, loading her tray with plates for table 3. "That thing where you're physically here but your mind is somewhere else. Let me guess, mentally practicing?" Maya smiled sheepishly. "The middle section's giving me trouble. I keep hitting a wrong note in measure 34. Tina shook her head with a smile. "Girl, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I hope you figure it out. Table 9 needs ketchup." By 2:30 p.m., Maya's feet were aching, but her step quickened as she hung up her apron and counted her tips. $43. Not bad for a Wednesday. She tucked the money into the special pocket of her wallet. Her piano fund. Someday she'd have enough for a small keyboard of her own. Something to practice on at home instead of relying on Mr. Miller's generosity. Outside, the mid-afternoon sun warmed her face as she walked the 3 blocks to Miller's music store. The small bell chimed as she pushed open the door, the familiar smell of wood polish and new sheet music welcoming her. Mr. Miller looked up from where he was restringing a guitar. His weathered face creased into a smile beneath his white mustache. "Right on time as always, Maya. She's all yours for the hour." In the back corner of the shop sat an upright piano, not fancy or new, but well-maintained and in tune. Maya set down her bag and ran her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing down, a habit from childhood when her grandmother taught her to greet the piano before playing. "How was the diner today?" Mr. Miller asked as he continued working on the guitar. "Busy. Good tips." Maya settled onto the bench, adjusting it to the right height. A customer spilled an entire milkshake on the floor. That was exciting, Mr. Miller chuckled. More exciting than Chopin, I'm sure. Nothing's more exciting than Chopin, Maya replied, opening her worn music book. She started with scales, feeling the day's tension melt away as her fingers remembered their purpose. Up and down, major and minor, her hands stretching and warming up. The transition from carrying plates to playing keys wasn't always easy. Sometimes her hands felt stiff from hours of gripping trays. But once she began, her body remembered. An hour wasn't long enough. It was never long enough, but Maya had learned to make the most of every minute, practicing the difficult passages, working through the transitions, occasionally closing her eyes to feel the music rather than read it. When she was 12, her piano teacher had told her parents she had what it took to attend a conservatory someday. That dream had faded with each passing year of financial reality, but never completely disappeared. It waited, patient as a seed under winter snow. 5 minutes, Mr. Miller called gently. Maya nodded, switching to the piece she'd been struggling with all week. Her brow furrowed in concentration as she worked through the challenging section, trying different fingerings until one felt right. When the last note faded, Mr. Miller applauded softly from behind the counter. Beautiful, he said. You know, I had a customer asking about piano lessons for his daughter yesterday. I gave him your number, hope that's okay. Maya's eyes widened. Really, yes, that's more than okay. Thank you! One student wouldn't change her life, but it was something. A step in a direction she'd been trying to move in for years. Teaching wasn't the same as performing, but it was music. It was sharing what she loved. As she gathered her things, Maya noticed a flyer on the bulletin board near the door. City Symphony auditions, open pianist position. Her heart skipped a beat before reality settled in. She wasn't ready for something like that. Not yet. But maybe someday. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows as Maya headed to the bus stop. Tomorrow would be another day of breakfast specials and coffee refills. Another day of watching the clock until she could return to these 60 precious minutes of being who she was truly meant to be. She hummed the Chopin piece as she waited for the bus, her fingers playing invisible keys against her thigh. A small boy watched her curiously from his mother's side. Are you a musician? He asked. Maya paused, the question catching her off guard. Was she? Or was she just a waitress who played sometimes? Yes, she finally said, surprising herself with the conviction in her voice. Yes, I am. The bus arrived, hissing to a stop in front of them. As Maya stepped aboard, she felt something settle within her, a quiet determination. The diner was how she survived, but music was how she lived. And somehow, someday, she would find a way to bring those two worlds closer together. Sunday brunch at Sunshine Diner was always chaotic. Maya arrived at 6 a.m. to help with prep, tying her apron as she hurried through the back door. The kitchen already hummed with activity. Frank flipping pancakes, Dina arranging fresh flowers on the counter, and their manager, Paul, looking more stressed than usual. Big day today, Paul announced, clapping his hands to gather everyone's attention. The mayor's office called. She's bringing some important guests for brunch around 10. They specifically requested our corner section. A collective groan rose from the staff. The corner section was Maya's territory. 6 tables that were always the most demanding to serve. Don't worry, Maya said, grabbing coffee filters. I've handled worse. That's why it's your section, Paul replied with a grateful nod. Just make sure everything's perfect, okay? These aren't our usual customers. By 9:30, the diner was packed. Maya moved efficiently between tables, refilling coffee cups, delivering plates of steaming pancakes, and clearing dishes. Her mind was half on her tasks and half on the piece. She'd been practicing yesterday at Miller's Music, a Debussy piece that required a gentle touch she hadn't quite mastered yet. At precisely 10:05, the front door chimed. Maya glanced up to see a small group enter. Well-dressed people who stood out immediately among the diner's usual Sunday crowd of families and after-church patrons. The mayor, a short woman with a practical haircut and a warm smile, led the group. Tables ready, Dina whispered as she rushed past Maya. Your section. Good luck. Maya took a deep breath and grabbed fresh menus. As she approached, she noticed the group consisted of the mayor and 3 others. 2 men in crisp suits and a woman whose elegant posture suggested years of disciplined training. Something about her seemed familiar, though Maya couldn't place it. "Welcome to Sunshine Diner." Maya greeted them with a genuine smile. "Coffee to start?" "Yes, please," the mayor replied. "Maya, isn't it? I remember you from last time." Maya felt a small glow of pride that the mayor had remembered her name. "That's right. Nice to see you again." As she poured coffee, she overheard snippets of their conversation, something about the City Symphony's upcoming season and funding for arts programs. The elegant woman was speaking passionately about community outreach. "We need to make classical music accessible," she was saying. "It's not just for concert halls and people who can afford $100 tickets." Maya found herself slowing down, listening more intently as she filled the last coffee cup. "Exactly why we're considering the park concert series," one of the men replied. "But we need to finalize the program soon, Elena." Maya nearly dropped the coffee pot. Elena Chen, that's why she looked familiar. Elena Chen was the lead pianist for the City Symphony, someone Maya had read about in local music articles and whose performances she'd watched on the Free Community channel whenever they were broadcast. The next hour passed in a blur as Maya served their meal. She found herself taking extra care with everything, making sure the water glasses were constantly full, that the side of fresh fruit was arranged perfectly on the plate, that she anticipated their needs before they had to ask. All while trying not to stare at Elena Chen, whose hands, those incredible, talented hands, were casually holding a fork or gesturing as she spoke. Maya was clearing their plates when disaster struck. The diner's ancient sound system, which usually played soft background music, made a terrible screeching noise before going completely silent. Paul rushed from the back office, his face pale. "Sorry about that, folks," he called out to the whole diner. "Our music system finally gave up. We'll have to enjoy the natural ambiance today." The mayor's table didn't seem bothered, but Paul looked genuinely distressed as he passed Maya. "This had to happen today of all days," he muttered. "Can't you use someone's phone to play music?" Maya suggested. "The speaker connection is shot too." He glanced toward the far corner of the diner, where an upright piano had stood for as long as Maya had worked there. It was mostly for show, a piece of nostalgia from when the diner first opened in the 1950s. Occasionally, during Christmas, Paul would convince his nephew to play carols on it, but otherwise it sat unused, more of a decorative piece than an instrument. "What about the piano?" Maya found herself saying. "Is it even in tune?" Paul looked surprised. "Actually, yes. My nephew played it last Christmas, remember? I had it tuned then." He paused, looking at her curiously. "Wait, do you play?" Maya felt her heart skip a beat. Yes, would you mind? Just some soft background music? I'll add an hour to your paycheck." Before she could overthink it, Maya nodded. "Let me finish with the corner table first." As she delivered dessert menus to the mayor's table, Maya noticed Elena Chen watching her. "Excuse me," the pianist said softly. "I couldn't help overhearing." "You play the piano?" Maya felt her cheeks warm. "I do. Our sound system broke, so my manager asked if I could play something on the old piano." "How wonderful," Elena smiled. "I'd love to hear you play." Maya's stomach tightened with nerves. Playing for Mr. Miller in his shop was one thing. Playing for a professional pianist and the city officials who funded the symphony was entirely another. But she simply smiled and said, "I hope you enjoy your dessert," before walking away on slightly shaky legs. At the piano, Maya took a moment to center herself. The instrument was old but beautiful, with yellowed ivory keys and a rich mahogany finish. She ran her fingers over the keys without pressing down, just feeling them, greeting them as she always did. Then she began to play. She started with something simple, a Bach piece she knew by heart, one that felt like coming home. Her fingers found the familiar patterns and the melody filled the diner. After the first few measures, the nervousness faded. The diner, the customers, even the important people in the corner, they all disappeared. There was only the music. Maya transitioned into the Debussy piece she'd been practicing. It wasn't perfect. Her left hand wasn't quite as delicate as it should have been in places, but she felt the music in a way she hadn't before. Perhaps it was the audience, or perhaps it was simply the joy of playing on a real piano in a space larger than Mr. Miller's shop. When she finished the piece, she was surprised to hear applause. Looking up, she realized the diner had grown quieter. People were watching her, smiling. An older man at the counter gave her a thumbs up. And at the corner table, Elena Chen was watching her with interest. Maya continued playing, moving through pieces she knew well, some classical, some more contemporary. She lost track of time until Paul gently touched her shoulder. "Maya, your tables need you," he said quietly. "But that was beautiful. I had no idea." As she returned to work, Maya noticed the mayor's table preparing to leave. She hurried over to bring their check. Elena Chen was standing, putting on a light jacket. "That was lovely playing," she said to Maya. "Especially the Debussy. Not many people attempt that piece." "Thank you," Maya replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "It means a lot coming from you. I've seen you perform with the symphony." Elena smiled. "How long have you been playing?" "Since I was 5. But I haven't had formal lessons since I was 16. Elena looked surprised. "You're self-taught since then? That's impressive." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small card. "We're holding auditions for a community program next month. Nothing professional yet, but we're looking for talented pianists to participate in educational concerts. You should come." Maya stared at the card in disbelief. I don't think I'm at that level." "You have something special," Elena said firmly. "Technical skills can be refined, but you can't teach someone to feel the music the way you do." She glanced at her companions who were waiting by the door. "I have to go. Think about it, okay?" After they left, Maya held the card like it might disappear if she blinked. "City Symphony Community Program. Elena Chen, Director. And a phone number." "What was that about?" Tina asked, sidling up to her. Maya showed her the card. "She wants me to audition for something." "The pianist lady?" "Oh my God." Tina grabbed Maya's arm. "You're going, right?" "I don't know. I'm not good enough for something like that. Are you kidding? You sounded amazing." Everyone was listening. Even Frank came out of the kitchen. Maya slipped the card into her apron pocket. "An audition for the City Symphony's community program." The thought was terrifying and thrilling all at once. That night at home, Maya sat on the edge of her bed staring at the card. Her roommates had already congratulated her and insisted she had to audition. But doubt crept in as she thought about how long it had been since she'd played for anyone but herself and Mr. Miller. How many professional pianists would be at these auditions? People with degrees and years of training she didn't have? She placed the card on her nightstand and lay back on her pillow. Tomorrow she would go back to serving plates and pouring coffee. But maybe, just maybe, there was a different future waiting for her now. One where her hands would do what they were always meant to do. 2 weeks passed before Maya worked up the courage to call the number on Elena Chen's card. Every day she took the card out of her wallet, stared at it, then put it back. Every night she dreamed of pianos and concert halls only to wake up to her alarm and another day of serving breakfast at the diner. "You're being ridiculous," Tina told her during a slow afternoon shift. "What's the worst that could happen? They say no. They laugh at me," Maya replied, wiping down menus. "They wonder why some waitress with no formal training in 10 years thinks she's good enough to play with professional musicians." "That's not what that fancy pianist lady thought," Tina pointed out. "She heard you play and gave you her card. That means something." That evening, Maya sat on the edge of her bed and finally made the call. To her surprise, Elena herself answered. "This is Maya from Sunshine Diner," she said, her voice smaller than she intended. "You gave me your card a couple weeks ago." "Maya, I was hoping you'd call," Elena replied warmly. "Are you interested in the audition?" "I'm curious about it," Maya said carefully. "But I should tell you, I work full-time. I don't have a music degree. I haven't had proper lessons since high school." There was a pause on the line. "Why don't you come to my office tomorrow? We can talk about the program, and you can decide if it's right for you." "No pressure, no formal audition yet." Maya looked at her schedule pinned to the wall. "I work until 3. I can meet you at 4 City Symphony Hall, administrative entrance. Just give your name at the desk." The next day, Maya rushed home after her shift to change out of her waitress uniform. She put on the nicest outfit she owned, black pants and a blue blouse she usually saved for job interviews. On the bus ride downtown, she tried to calm her racing thoughts. The symphony hall was intimidating, all gleaming glass and polished stone. Maya had never been inside before, had only admired it from outside when passing by. At the reception desk, she gave her name nervously, half expecting to be turned away. "Ah yes, Ms. Chen is expecting you," the receptionist said with a smile. "Down the hall, 3rd door on the right." Elena's office was small but warm, with framed concert programs on the walls and a baby grand piano in the corner. Maya's fingers itched at the sight of it. "Maya, thank you for coming," Elena greeted her. "Please sit down." Over the next hour, Elena explained the community program. It wasn't part of the main symphony, but a parallel initiative focused on bringing music education to schools and community centers. They needed pianists who could perform in various settings, sometimes accompanying singers or other instrumentalists, sometimes playing solo pieces. "It's a paid position," Elena explained, "but part-time, 10 to 15 hours a week, including rehearsals and—" She hesitated, studying Maya's face. "There's also a scholarship component for promising musicians who need formal training. Private lessons with symphony members, music theory classes. A chance to develop professionally." Maya's heart skipped. "And you think I qualify for that?" "I heard something special when you played at the diner. Raw talent that deserves nurturing." Elena leaned forward. "The scholarship isn't full, you'd still have expenses. And the schedule is demanding. But if you're serious about music, this could be a path forward." Maya stared at her hands in her lap. "I've wanted something like this for so long. But I can't quit my job. I have rent, bills." "No one's asking you to quit," Elena assured her. "Many of our community musicians work other jobs. But I won't sugarcoat it, it's hard. You'll be tired. You'll wonder if it's worth it." Before Maya left, Elena asked her to play something on the baby grand. Nervously, Maya sat at the piano, so much finer than any she'd played before, and performed the piece she'd been practicing at Miller's Music for the past month. When she finished, Elena simply handed her an application form. "Fill this out if you decide to move forward. Auditions are in 2 weeks." On the bus ride home, Maya did the math in her head. If she got the position and the scholarship, she'd need to reduce her hours at the diner by at least 15 hours a week. That meant losing about $200 in weekly income plus tips. Her rent was $650 a month for her share of the apartment. Then there were utilities, food, bus fare. She couldn't make it work. The numbers simply didn't add up. For 3 days, Maya carried the application in her bag, unable to fill it out but unwilling to throw it away. On the 4th day, Tina noticed her distraction during their shift. "Okay, spill it. What happened with the piano people?" In the break room, Maya explained the opportunity and the impossible financial situation. "So you need to make up about $800 a month, give or take?" Tina asked, thinking. "More or less. Which is why I can't do it." The next day, Maya arrived at work to find Paul, the manager, waiting for her with an unusual expression on his face. "I need to talk to you," he said, leading her to his small office. "Tina tells me you have a chance at some music program but can't afford to cut your hours." Maya shot a look at Tina, who was pretending to be very busy wiping down the counter. "It's fine," Maya said quickly. "I've decided not to apply." Paul shook his head. "That piano music was the best thing that's happened to this diner in years. Customers have been asking when you'll play again." He slid a paper across the desk. "So here's what I'm thinking. Sunday morning piano brunches. You play for 2 hours, we pay you for 4. Maya stared at the proposal. "You'd do that." "It's good business," Paul insisted, though his eyes were kind. "Plus, Frank says if you don't pursue this, he'll quit and protest, and I can't afford to lose my best cook." Later that afternoon, Tina cornered her by the coffee station. "We've got more," she whispered excitedly. The staff took up a collection. She pressed an envelope into Maya's hand. "It's not huge, but it might help with music books or whatever you need." Inside was $340 and a card signed by everyone at the diner. That night, Maya's roommates added their own solution. "Take my brother's room," Lee offered. "He's moving out next month, and his room is half the price of yours. It's smaller, but—" "I can't take your brother's room," Maya protested. "You can and you will," Lee insisted. "Do you know how long I've had to listen to you tapping your fingers on every surface in this apartment? You're going to that audition." Sitting at her desk that night, Maya filled out the application with shaking hands. The past 2 weeks had shown her how many lives she'd touched without realizing it. Her co-workers, her roommates, even the regular customers who'd slipped extra tips into her apron with whispers of, "For the piano fund." The day of the audition arrived all too quickly. Maya had practiced every spare moment, rushing to Miller's Music after shortened shifts at the diner, staying up late reading music theory books she'd borrowed from the library. The audition room was intimidating, a small recital hall with a panel of 5 people, including Elena. Maya's hands trembled as she sat at the piano. "Whenever you're ready." Elena said gently. Maya closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. The piece was Chopin, challenging but beautiful. She lost herself in the music, forgetting the panel, forgetting her fears, simply letting her fingers speak the language they knew best. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before the panel began making notes. Elena's face revealed nothing as she thanked Maya and said they'd be in touch within a week. 7 days later, the letter arrived. Maya stood in the apartment hallway, staring at the symphony logo on the envelope, afraid to open it. Finally, she tore it open. Dear Ms. Rivera, we are pleased to offer you a position in our community piano program, including a partial scholarship for professional development. Maya sank to the floor, letter clutched to her chest, tears streaming down her face. 10 years after having to give up formal training, she was going back. It wouldn't be easy. The schedule they outlined was grueling. Morning shifts at the diner, afternoon classes and rehearsals, evening practice sessions. But for the first time in a decade, she had a path forward. That Sunday, Maya played her first official piano brunch at Sunshine Diner. The place was packed, with people standing by the door waiting for tables. As her fingers moved across the keys, she caught Tina's eye across the room. Her friend raised a coffee pot and a silent toast. The road ahead would be hard, but Maya wasn't walking it alone. 6 months into her new life, Maya was exhausted. Her days began at 5 a.m. when she dragged herself out of bed for the early shift at Sunshine Diner. By 2 p.m., she was rushing across town to the symphony hall for lessons or rehearsals that often lasted until 7 or 8 in the evening, then home to practice for another hour before collapsing into bed, only to repeat it all again the next day. You look terrible, Tina told her bluntly one morning as they prepared the diner for opening. When was the last time you had a full night's sleep? Maya yawned as she filled sugar dispensers. I don't remember. Maybe last month? The community piano program had been both wonderful and brutal. The other musicians, most of whom had formal music degrees, were friendly enough, but Maya often felt like an imposter among them. They spoke a language of music theory that she was still struggling to learn, casually referencing concepts she had to look up later and pretend she understood. Her instructor, Dr. Lin, was a stern woman in her 60s who had played with orchestras around the world. She rarely offered praise and seemed to have an uncanny ability to spot every flaw in Maya's technique. Your left hand is too heavy, she would say, stopping Maya mid-piece. Again, from the beginning. Or, you're rushing the tempo. This isn't a race, Maya. Listen to what the composer is telling you. Each Thursday, Maya had a 1-hour lesson with Dr. Lin. She came to dread Thursdays. You're developing bad habits from playing without proper instruction for so long, Dr. Lin told her during a particularly difficult session. Your fingering is inefficient. Your posture needs work. And your understanding of dynamics is rudimentary. Maya had gone home that night and cried into her pillow, careful not to wake Lee, who was sleeping in the next room. She had thought she was good enough at least. The customers at the diner certainly seemed to enjoy her Sunday brunches. But in the world of classical piano, she was discovering just how much she didn't know. The financial strain was taking its toll as well. The scholarship covered her lessons and classes, but not the new music books she needed or the proper clothes for performances. Her smaller room saved on rent, but unexpected expenses kept popping up. A bus fare increase, a higher electric bill, a necessary dental appointment she'd put off for too long. You should talk to Elena, her roommate Lee suggested one evening, finding Maya at the kitchen table surrounded by bills. Maybe there's additional funding available. But Maya's pride kept her from asking for more help. She had already received so much: the opportunity, the scholarship, the support from everyone at the diner. She couldn't bear to admit she was still struggling. Instead, she picked up extra shifts when she could, running on coffee and determination. Her hands grew calloused from carrying plates and practicing difficult passages over and over. Some nights she fell asleep still wearing her clothes, too tired to change. Through it all, she kept playing. There were moments, brief, beautiful moments, when everything aligned, when her fingers found the right notes effortlessly, when the music flowed through her like water. Those moments made everything worth it, until the day of the 6-month evaluation. Each scholarship recipient had to perform for a panel of instructors every 6 months to assess their progress. Maya had been preparing for weeks, practicing a challenging Mozart sonata that Dr. Lin had assigned her. It was just at the edge of her abilities, which Dr. Lin explained, was exactly where she needed to be working. The evaluation room was small but formal, with excellent acoustics and a magnificent grand piano that made the baby grand in Elena's office look modest. 5 instructors, including Dr. Lin and Elena, sat at a table with evaluation forms. "Whenever you're ready, Maya," Elena said with an encouraging smile. Maya took her seat at the piano, adjusted the bench and placed her hands on the keys. She had practiced this piece hundreds of times. She knew it inside and out, but as she began to play, something felt wrong. Her fingers seemed stiff, uncooperative. The familiar passages suddenly looked foreign on the page. She made it through the first movement reasonably well, despite a few minor errors. But in the second movement, disaster struck. Her hands simply wouldn't do what her brain was telling them. She hit a jarring wrong note, then another. She stopped, took a breath, and tried again from the beginning of the phrase, only to make a different mistake. "Take a moment," Dr. Lin said, her voice unusually gentle. Maya stared at the keys. The black and white pattern that had always been her comfort now seemed like a complicated puzzle she couldn't solve. She tried once more, managing to finish the movement, but she knew it wasn't good enough. Not even close. The third movement was worse. By the end, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hit the final chord. The silence that followed felt eternal. "Thank you, Maya," Elena said finally. "We'll have your evaluation results next week." Maya left the room in a daze. In the bathroom, she splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection. What had she been thinking? That she could just jump back into serious music after a decade away and compete with properly trained musicians? That talent alone would be enough. She called in sick to the diner the next day, something she'd never done before. She couldn't face anyone, couldn't bear to answer questions about how her evaluation had gone. Instead, she stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, the disastrous performance playing over and over in her head. By evening, hunger finally drove her out of her room. Lai was at work, so Maya had the small kitchen to herself. As she waited for water to boil for instant noodles, her phone rang. It was Paul from the diner. "Just checking on you," he said. "Tina said you weren't feeling well." "I'm fine," Maya lied. "Just a stomach bug. I'll be in tomorrow." There was a pause. "A little girl came in today asking about you," Paul said. "She was pretty disappointed the piano lady wasn't there. Said she's been coming with her mom every Sunday to hear you play." Maya felt something catch in her throat. "I'm sorry I missed her. She left you something. A drawing. I can keep it at the diner for you." The next morning, Maya returned to work. The drawing was waiting for her in her locker. A child's rendition of a woman playing a piano, surrounded by musical notes in every color of the rainbow. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, "For Miss Piano Lady, you are amazing." Maya taped the drawing to her bathroom mirror at home, looking at it as she brushed her teeth that night. A little girl thought she was amazing. Not technically perfect, not classically trained, but amazing. The evaluation results arrived 3 days later. Maya opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Progress assessment, below expectations. Recommendation, additional foundational work required before advancing to next level. There was a handwritten note from Elena at the bottom. Technical skills can be learned, Maya. Don't give up. That evening at the diner, Maya was refilling salt shakers when she noticed a young girl watching her from a nearby booth. The girl's mother was busy with a baby in a high chair, while the girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, stared openly at Maya. "Are you the piano lady?" the girl asked when Maya approached with water refills. "I am," Maya replied with a smile. "Are you the artist who made me the beautiful drawing?" The girl nodded shyly. "Mom says you play here on Sundays." "I'm learning piano too. It's hard." "It is hard," Maya agreed. "I mess up all the time." "Me too," the girl said, her eyes wide. "My teacher says it's okay to mess up as long as you keep trying." Maya thought about that as she finished her shift. Keep trying. Such simple advice. Maybe that's all there was to it. That night, instead of collapsing into bed, Maya sat at her desk and made a new practice schedule. She would get up 30 minutes earlier each day to work on the fundamentals Dr. Lin kept emphasizing. She would record her practices to hear her mistakes more objectively, and she would ask Dr. Lin for exercises specifically designed to correct her technical flaws. The path forward wouldn't be easy. But as she looked at the colorful drawing on her mirror, Maya knew she wasn't ready to give up. Not yet, not when there was still music waiting inside her, finding its way out one note at a time. 2 years had passed since that Sunday when Elena Chen first heard Maya play at Sunshine Diner. 2 years of early mornings and late nights, of calloused fingers and aching shoulders, of moments of doubt followed by small breakthroughs. After her disappointing evaluation, Maya had done exactly what she promised herself. She got up earlier, practiced smarter, and swallowed her pride to ask for help. Dr. Lin had been surprisingly supportive once she saw Maya's determination. "You have the heart of a true musician," Dr. Lin told her after a particularly good lesson. "And now finally your technique is beginning to match it." Progress was slow but steady. Maya learned to read complex sheet music more fluently. Her fingers grew stronger and more precise. Most importantly, she developed the discipline to practice the same passage 50 times if necessary, until it was right. The community program concerts had taken her to schools, community centers and retirement homes across the city. She'd played for children who had never seen a piano up close before, for elderly people who closed their eyes and swayed to the music of their youth, for audiences both attentive and distracted. Each performance made her more comfortable on stage. Each audience taught her something different about connecting through music, and through it all she kept serving breakfast at Sunshine Diner. "I don't get it," a new waitress named Penny said one day. "You've been in that fancy music program for 2 years. Why are you still waiting tables?" Maya smiled as she arranged plates on her serving tray. "Because I like it here, and because these people believed in me before anyone else did." That was true, but not the whole truth. The reality was more complicated. Maya had grown to love her double life, the ordinary routine of the diner balanced with the artistic challenges of her music. The diner kept her grounded, connected her to real people and everyday life in a way that the sometimes rarefied world of classical music did not. As Dr. Lin once told her, "A musician must live in the world to have something worth saying about it." Today was a milestone day. Maya stood in the small dressing room at the community concert hall, staring at her reflection. Instead of her usual waitress uniform or casual clothes, she wore a simple black dress that Lee had helped her shop for. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, showing the gold earrings that had been her grandmother's, the only thing of value she'd left behind. Tonight was Maya's first solo recital. Not a student showcase or a community outreach event, but a proper recital with her name on the program. The community concert series featured promising local musicians, and Elena had recommended Maya for a spot in this season's lineup. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. 10 minutes, called the stage manager. Maya took a deep breath. She was ready. She had prepared for months, selecting pieces that showcased both technical ability and emotional depth. Dr. Lin had helped her refine the program, pushing Maya to include a challenging Rachmaninoff piece that would have terrified her a year ago. When she stepped onto the stage, the lights momentarily blinded her. As her eyes adjusted, she could make out the audience, a modest crowd of perhaps 100 people. Her heart pounded as she took her place at the piano, adjusted the bench, and settled her hands in her lap. In the front row sat Elena, Dr. Lin, and several other instructors from the program. But what caught Maya's attention was the group to their right: Paul, Frank, Tina, and at least a dozen others from Sunshine Diner, all dressed in their Sunday best. Lee and her other roommate had come too, sitting beside a beaming Mr. Miller from the music shop. And there, clutching a program and practically bouncing in her seat, was the little girl who had drawn the piano picture, accompanied by her mother and younger siblings. The drawing still hung on Maya's bathroom mirror, a daily reminder of why she kept going on the hardest days. Maya smiled, nodded slightly to acknowledge them all, then turned her focus to the piano. She began with Bach, precise mathematical, a test of technical control. From there she moved to Chopin, allowing more emotion to flow through her fingers. The Debussy piece that had once given her so much trouble now felt like an old friend. When she reached the Rachmaninoff, she paused for just a moment. This was the piece that had nearly broken her during preparation. Dr. Lin had insisted she could handle it, even when Maya wasn't sure herself. The first crashing chords filled the hall. Maya lost herself in the music, her fingers flying across the keys, her body swaying slightly with the rhythm. The technical challenges that had seemed insurmountable during practice now passed beneath her fingers with confidence. When the final notes faded away, there was a moment of complete silence before the applause began. Maya stood, slightly dizzy with adrenaline, and bowed. As she looked out at the audience, at the people from both sides of her life applauding together, something settled within her. The two worlds she had tried so hard to keep balanced were not really separate at all. They were both equally parts of who she was. The reception afterward was small but lively. Maya found herself surrounded by well-wishers from both the music program and the diner. "That was something else," Paul said, squeezing her shoulder. "Never heard that piano sound so good." Dr. Lin approached with uncharacteristic warmth. "You've come very far, Maya. Your grandmother would be proud." Maya blinked in surprise. She had mentioned her grandmother only once, months ago. "You play like she taught you," Dr. Lin explained. "I can hear it in your phrasing. Some things can't be taught in a classroom." Later, as the crowd thinned, Elena pulled Maya aside. "I have news," she said. "The symphony board was impressed with your performance. They've approved a new position, weekend pianist for our education department with additional scholarship funding for advanced study." Maya's breath caught. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means a steady income from music, Maya. Not fortune and fame, but enough that you could cut back more hours at the diner if you wanted. And it means we believe you have potential for more." That night, Maya walked home instead of taking the bus, needing time to process everything. The cool night air felt good against her skin, still warm from the stage lights and excitement. 2 years ago, she had dreamed of escaping the diner, of leaving behind the life of serving plates to focus entirely on playing keys. Now she wasn't so sure that was what she wanted. The next morning, Maya arrived at Sunshine Diner for her regular shift. Several regular customers congratulated her. Word had spread quickly about her recital. "So are you leaving us now?" Frank asked from the kitchen window. "Going to be a fancy concert pianist?" Maya laughed as she tied on her apron. "Not exactly, but I am cutting back to part-time." Paul had already offered her something new. Weekend pianist for Sunday brunches, with the diner's old piano tuned and positioned prominently by the front windows. "The best of both worlds," Tina remarked, bumping Maya's hip with her own as they passed in the narrow space behind the counter. And it was. As Maya moved through the familiar routine of the diner, pouring coffee, taking orders, balancing plates, she felt a new sense of peace. Her hands would always be doing double duty, carrying plates and playing keys. But now they did both with equal pride. That afternoon, a young woman Maya had never seen before came into the diner and sat at the counter. "Are you the piano player?" she asked hesitantly. "My music teacher said I should come hear you sometime. I'm trying to decide if I should keep taking lessons or give up. It's so hard and I don't know if I'm good enough." Maya smiled as she poured a cup of coffee. "It is hard," she agreed. "But here's what I've learned. Good enough isn't a fixed point. It's a journey." She glanced at the old piano waiting in the corner for Sunday. "Want to know a secret?" Maya added. "I'm still not where I want to be either. But I'm a lot further along than I was 2 years ago. And that's something worth playing for."